Hi, thanks for tuning in today. Today I want to share a clip with you from Dr. Bart Ehrman, and it really is a challenge to us in some ways. Dr. Bart Ehrman is a well-known biblical scholar. He studied in Princeton under Dr. Bruce Metzger. He's well-known in circles of textual criticism and things of that nature. He's also known as a critic of Christianity. He was himself at one time a believer. He'd gone through Moody Bible Institute. He ended up losing his faith. And I think he's done quite a bit of damage, quite frankly, to conservative Christians in terms of how he's attacked conservative Christianity, his attacks on the Bible. I don't think he's done any good work in that regard. I don't question his erudition or intelligence, but what caught my attention was he did this lecture on the King James Version Bible, and his remarks there were quite telling. Again, this is a man that's at the top of his field, well known, well respected, and yet his remarks on the King James Version Bible really struck me. So let's take a listen.
There are questions among scholars about how many people actually participated in the translation, but the best guess is that there were 47 translators who were all skilled, highly skilled in Greek and Hebrew. Today, when somebody's highly skilled in Greek, like Jeff Syker and me, we're considered highly skilled in Greek. That means we can kind of slosh our way through a Greek text if we have a good dictionary sitting next to us. These guys, including King James, could speak Greek and did speak Greek to each other when they felt like it. And they could read Hebrew like the newspaper. So, I mean, these were serious scholars who, their excuse is they didn't have TV. There was no ESPN. What did they do? They sit around and they studied Greek. I mean, this is what they did. And so they were, and Latin and Hebrew and what. They had.
I thought this was very interesting. And it sort of is an indictment on current biblical scholarship. It used to be that biblical scholars had a much wider, broader grasp of biblical Greek. Not just biblical Greek, but Greek in general, Attic Greek, classical Greek. They read widely, and they knew Greek well enough that they were conversing. They could converse with one another in Greek. This is sort of a bygone age. Biblical scholars, for the most part these days, lack that same grasp of Greek. Why do I bring it up? I don't bring it up because I'm a King James onlyist. I lose a lot of subscribers because people think that because I love the King James Version, I've talked about the King James Version, that maybe I'm a King James Version onlyist. They find out I'm not, and they unsubscribe, and that's fine. I don't go out of my way to attack the King James Version. I don't go out of my way to attack King James Version onlyists. I just state my position, and that's enough for some people to walk away, and I totally understand that. So the purpose of this video is not to try to defend King James Version onlyism, only to say that on the opposite side, I do have people unsubscribe because they think of me as a dinosaur, because I like the King James Version Bible. And they think, don't you know that there's so many better modern translations that are available these days? Well, I have nothing against modern translations. I appreciate the good translations that we've had that have built on some of that great tradition. So I have no quarrel with anybody, really, on these matters. But what I thought was interesting is here you have a scholar of Dr. Ehrman's caliber, maybe infamous caliber, but admitting that he, as one of the nation's most well-known biblical scholars, lacks the degree of fluency with Greek that the older translators had. So what I do want us to avoid, though, is what C.S. Lewis called chronological snobbery. So that because something's new, it's automatically better. Or to think that because the King James Version is old, that it lacks in some way in terms of its accuracy. Now, again, I'm not trying to take any kind of radical view on this. I'm just saying that there are times where there are people who are very quick to call something a mistranslation. And sometimes when they've done that, it's not because it's a mistranslation, it's because their knowledge of the Greek language is not sufficient for them to understand why something's been translated the way it has. I've noticed in some very good commentaries, oftentimes there'll be a sort of a correction. So there might be a fad for how a particular phrase or passage is treated, a fad in translations. And then a very good commentator will go back and say, you know what, maybe the King James translators got this right. So some people need to be doing that work. There needs to be biblical scholars who are going beyond the boundaries of just the New Testament. But not only so, we need people who are able to pick up Greek literature and be able to read it as well. We need depth in the languages so that we're not misled and that our understanding of the language is broader than just a narrow band. I do appreciate the work that's being done at Biblical Mastery Academy. Daryl Burling over there is helping people learn the languages better so that they can pick up their New Testament and read it. But not only so, he tries to encourage reading in the Septuagint and in the Apostolic Fathers and going beyond just the New Testament itself. I think that I find great value in that. There's a Greek teacher, I think his name is Daniel Street. You can find his information online. I'll try to leave a link for it. But he gave a test to, it was at I don't think it was the Society of Biblical Literature or anything like that, but maybe it was more of an evangelical gathering or something. But there were a number of people who were writing Greek grammars that were present in his lecture, and he gave out a test, and he had them translate. He gave them an English word and said, translate this into Greek. And I mean, we're talking like very basic stuff, like the word monkey. Translate the word monkey into Greek. Translate the word 9 into Greek. And he goes on and on with a number of just very simple Greek words. And hardly anyone did very well on that test at all. And so I think some of these words that Dr. Ehrman has given is a challenge to those who would put themselves forward as biblical scholars with knowledge of the Greek to deepen their knowledge of the Greek. So anyways, that's all I've got for you today, and I'll look forward to seeing you on the next one.